This week's blog post is part 2 of my series on Tuscany, which I visited in January 2024. This one has to do with car rental and driving. The first post in this series is on planning, packing, and airline flights. This first couple posts in this series are more like public announcements than posts on art, because there were a lot of questions that I wished I had known enough to ask, never mind not having the answers to. So we start with renting a car at the Florence airport. I talked about the Florence airport last week. Booking a car. My husband booked well in advance, online. That was a very good thing because due to a flight delay, we appeared at the rental office half an hour before they were closing for New Year's Eve. I'm not sure the agent would still have been there had we not had a reservation. Car rental offices in Florence are not inside the airport terminal. You have to go outside and look for the shuttle marked Autonoleggio. It takes you to all the rental places, which are a 5 or 10-minute ride away. The shuttle runs every 10 to 15 minutes from about 6 a.m. to midnight. While you're waiting for the shuttle to show up, be sure to check the signs for the shuttle's hours if you have a return flight that's very early or very late. Picking up the car. The shuttle bus passes a row of one-story buildings with large, well-lit car rental signs for all the major companies. Guess what? That's not where the agents are. To reach the agents, you have to enter the big brown brick building that's on the far side of the shuttle's turning circle. The rental offices inside the building are supposed to be open from 8 to 8. Check with the company when you make the reservation. A word about returning the car. In your GPS, you want to enter Florence Airport Rental Car Return. If you put in Florence Airport Rental Car, the GPS will take you to the rental car shuttle station just outside the terminal. And after you do that 3 times at 4:30 a.m., you will be wondering why you didn't learn to curse in more languages. It's very annoying. Filling up the gas tank before you return the car. We tried very diligently to fill the tank, but we could not find a gas station near the airport that was open at 4:30 a.m. So we returned the car with only 7/8 of a tank of gas. I'm not sure whether they charged us for the missing 1/8 of a tank. If they did, it was a negligible amount. Key drop off. Our flight was at 6:30 a.m. The car rental offices don't open until 8. It took us 15 minutes or so of wandering around to figure out that the key drop off box is by the Europe car office in that row of one-story buildings that were absolutely no use when we wanted to pick up the car. But when you want to drop off the car, that's where the key drop box is. In an excess of caution, because nobody was around when we dropped off the car, we took photos of it from all sides to show there was no damage, and we also made sure that one of the photos included the sign that showed what slot we parked it in. On getting from the rental return to the airport terminal, if the shuttle is not running, it is possible to walk from the rental offices to the terminal. The terminal is on the other side of the Autostrada, which is a major highway. It's a bit complicated to walk that, but the GPS will get you there. At 5 a.m., there was not much traffic, so walking with our suitcases felt pretty safe. I would absolutely not want to walk that route later in the day when traffic is heavier. Moving on to the car. We rented from Europe Car, which gave us a Fiat 500L. That's at the upper left. Apparently, this is on the large side for a car in Italy. In the US, it would barely make it out of the compact class. Small car is in fact a good thing because Italian streets and parking spaces are not amenable to Escalade-size vehicles. Manual shift. If you are comfortable driving a stick shift, it's really useful if you're going to be driving in the Tuscan hills. Diesel. The Fiat's diesel engine had a disconcerting habit of sounding like it had stalled at the red lights. But as soon as my husband hit the gas, it was clearly still running. They tell me this is a diesel thing. diesel additive. Halfway through our 10-day stay, the Fiat's check engine light came on. The car apparently needed a dose of some blue stuff that cuts down on emissions. I have no idea what it's actually called. But if it doesn't get the dose of the blue stuff within 100 kilometers or so, the car will no longer start and it will take a mechanic to restart it. We could not find the blue stuff at the gas station or the supermarket near our hotel. We called Europcar, who told us to bring the car to the Pisa airport. We were closer to Pisa than Florence at that point. And Europcar gave us a whole different car, an Opel Crossroads. And speaking of the Opel Crossroads, to get into reverse, you have to lift a ring that is beneath the head of the gear shift. There is no marking to indicate that that's what you have to do. We had to read a car manual in Italian to figure it out. It's the kind of thing we should have checked before we left the parking lot rather than when we were trying to parallel park. Moving on to actually driving in Italy. Driving in Italy is not for the faint of heart in the city or on the highway. And I say that as someone who's dealt with both aggressive New York City drivers and monster trucks in Florida. Italians drive quickly and pass a lot. Driving among them takes good reaction times and a certain amount of courage. Word on roundabouts or traffic circles. In Italy, there are far more traffic circles than there are traffic lights. Traffic circles are very efficient, but they're startling if you're used to having drivers come to a full stop before turning. You need to know who has the right of way, it's the car in the circle, and you need to be able to calculate whether you can slip into the traffic flow that's already in the circle. Our scariest driving moment came in a Florence traffic circle at dusk during rush hour when a kid on an electric scooter decided not only to enter a traffic circle but to switch lanes while cars were maneuvering around him at twice his speed. Fortunately, my husband has quick reflexes. Incidentally, we were driving in Florence on New Year's Eve, and by 10 or 11 p.m., we did not see anyone who was obviously driving drunk. Moving on to parking, the Italian word for which is parcheggio, which you can see on the right side of the screen. If you're parking on the street, a yellow line means that the parking is only for residents. Blue lines indicate paid spots. To pay, you make a note of your license plate and find a ticket kiosk. Sometimes there are limits to how long you can park in a blue space, so you should check the nearest sign. City centers often have large parking garages, and they're often underground. They will be marked with a large white key on a blue background, and they will often have an electronic sign showing you how many spots are available. Some of these lots will even read your plate and print the number on the ticket as you go in. You can find garages like this by looking on Google Maps for parcheggio. There is the ZTL. We saw a sign for ZTL. We said, what the hell is that? It means Zona a Traffico Limitato, a limited traffic zone. In Florence, the entrance to such an area will have a flashing ZTL sign. You cannot drive in a ZTL unless you are a resident or a delivery vehicle. You can't park unless you're a resident. There are high fines for entering ZTLs, so do not go there. I've given you a link to a post with a lot of useful information on Italian highway and street signs, worth reading if you're going to be driving. And finally, toll roads. Leaving Florence one night at rush hour, the GPS put us on a toll road. We had no idea which lane to get into to pay with cash. So we randomly got into the far left lane, which had the EU symbol above it. There was no attendant, there's no credit card machine. When Sal pushed the buzzer for assistance, someone just opened the gate for us rather than sending a person over. 2 months or so later, we received a bill for passing through that gate without paying, and it came to 20 euros. In brief, if you're approaching a toll plaza, the white sign means you can pay with cash, the blue is for paying with a credit card, the yellow is for Telepass, which is the equivalent of Easy Pass in the US. Our car rental company did offer us a telepass for a certain fee. I can't remember what it was. We would only have used it twice on the whole trip, so it wasn't worth our while. I've also given you a link in the blog post to an explanation of toll gate signs. All right, next week we will move on to Florence. Diane Durante Writer has hundreds of posts on sculpture, painting, architecture, and my other obsessions. To join the Sunday Recommendations email list, visit the URL that's on the screen or email me. You can say, "Well done, Diane," or support my work and receive rewards by means of the tip jar on dianedurantewriter.com. As always, thank you for listening.